and we're live, and you won't know what we just said. Right, and so yeah, we're going to get this as the thumbnail. And Haley, if you go over to the screen, I'll talk about any in context with the other irrational functions.
Oh, sorry.
Oops, there we go.
Good.
So yeah, so what I'm going to talk about here is how any is different from the other irrational functions, SI, SE, and NI. I suppose if somebody's on their mobile device, I will.
That helps even me on a laptop. Thank you.
Okay. So the difference from SE is that, and it's probably the biggest difference, is that SE really is the here and the now. It's uptime, as in it's like situational awareness, really in the moment, focused in the zone, like that thing that they say in sports, in the zone, in the here and now. Really, as Dario would say, immersed in the present context. Whereas a big part of NE is cross-contextual thinking. And it's like, oh, this is like this. This is, or rather, this is analogous to this. So that is directly opposite. So this is the thing with the way that these irrational functions are defined. They literally are opposites. But I don't believe the rational functions are. I don't believe thinking and feeling are opposites. In essence. One moment. I'm going to do a bit. I've got to stop something. All right, there we go. Yeah, they're not opposites in essence. So it's just a slight digression, a little bit of NE. So thinking and feeling are only opposites in the sense of the impersonal objectivity. I'm channeling Vanderhook. I would say the impersonal objectivity at which thinking sometimes aims, that is the opposite of feeling. But I would say that not all thinking aims at impersonal objectivity. You can have thinking combined with feeling, and you especially get that in the 6. But getting back to this, the way these are defined, they literally are opposites. So you can see how SE is opposite from NE in the here and now versus cross-contextual. And we see that, and we know that because at the whole type level, Dario Nardi has talked about that the NPs score highest in cross-contextual thinking. He called it trans-contextual, but just to make it easier for people, I've called it cross-contextual. And this is one of the reasons why at the whole type level, NPs have a tendency to tangent, because they see a connection to another context. And you can also see how they value that connection. NJs probably see it, but ignore it. NE is also opposite from NI in the sense of NE sees a lot of possibilities, lots of options, is informing. NI has got that more of a solid vision of change, more of a path, more of a singular vision. And NE is sort of switching. And so NE can be, and so at the whole type level, we see NPs sort of starting projects and not completing them, whereas NJs are a lot more goal focused and complete their projects. So what you can have is, I would say it's fair to say that NPs have more ideas than NJs, but NJs are better at completion and results. So it's like getting stuff done. So from a creative point of view, an NJ might complete more creative projects than an NP. And so in terms of products, you can have an NJ produce more creative things than an NP, because frequently NPs lack discipline to fully implement their ideas. And it's like, and somebody else, it's like if you interviewed one, oh, I had this great idea for this thing, but then I moved on to another idea. If it's not produced, they don't know so there's a creative aspect to NE, there's a creative aspect to a creative stroke imaginative aspect to all the functions, but I'm just giving you an example there. So now, any being the opposite of SI. There is, in terms of the new and the novel and possibilities, whereas SI is going towards the tried and the true. And you see it, and you can sort of see there in that example how any can be weak in SI DOMs, where they're not trying out something new, or a new possibility. And also, any and SE have risk associated with the function, but it's different. So SE is more kind of physical risks. Any is sort of like abstract risks of trying something that's different. And that's another way in which NPs and NJs are different. It's the NJs would look at the NPs. Why are you trying that? You're just trying that you're just being different for being different sake. Whereas the NJs are more focused on the product, the result, and it doesn't matter if it's an unoriginal approach. They say non-originality has nothing to do with it. It's a tried and tested approach. So it's like they're neutral on that. So whole type features of any. I'll move on from this slide. I think there's a bit there. There we go. Like now, alternate, change, stay. I should have meant development. Because like change can be like all over the place. So NE can change from one thing to another. But as we talked about before when we did NI, I meant change as in development rather than switch on. Right, so this is Vanderhoop's definitions, and it's just a theme of NE. The world as possibilities. Certainly that's the way NE DOMs see it. And especially like ENFP, they want to travel, they want to visit other cultures. Broadens with the NF and the benevolent attitude towards humanity. They just want to they want to meet people from other cultures. They're interested in people because they're NFs, and they want to meet people from different cultures and travel and all of that. Whereas the SE DOMs are more interested in sort of like the physical aspects of travel in terms of like physical experiences to do stuff, whereas ENFPs want to do it as a theme. Here is
How
a
would
bit
that compare to an
on
INFP?
INFP as well, but INFP is a bit more cautious because they're SE allergic. I brought back allergic because I wasn't quite happy with the verse binary and Achilles heel. I brought back allergic. So this is just a bit about ENFP with NE. I'll zoom in. So yeah. So this is the extroverted intuitive type with feeling as a secondary function. So NEFX. And so in this case, it's about occupying. So it's about possibilities and relationships in the world. Self-expression, personal relationships, presentation of ideals and plans in a vivid manner. That lines up with Kurz's idea of the ENFP being predisposed to the advocate's role, the champion of a cause. And so this is NE within the context of the NF temperament. And then here, this is a bit about where they use FI. When in a state of introversion, so it's like this is consistent with my idea of default and situational. Their subsidiary manifests itself more in independent form. And it says there, then they might act more like an introverted feeling type. Right, so that's their diagram, and it lines up. You've got all the NF functions there, and same on there on Model V.
I would just like to say that one of my closest friends is an ENFP, and I've seen both sides of this in him. And it's funny because he helps me see that there are other possibilities, and I will kind of say to him, are we kind of getting like, are we getting ahead of ourselves? I mean, we can do this, we can do that, and this and that. And I'm like, hey, stop, hold on, let's write all this down. But then in other matters and deeper matters, like more personal things, when he's kind of gotten all his energy out and we're having like a deep one-on-one talk, I can see where his FI is like kind of cranked up a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll concentrate on this NE bit here. So this is TINX or TIN. I'd write it down as TINX, but I might call it TIN when I speak because it's quicker. So TINX, TIN. And this is how, so this is just an example of like when NE is second auxiliary. In regard to the world, such an individual is hampered in his vision by seeing it for the most part through the spectacles of his own opinions and conceptions. It is true that when he is in a more extroverted mood, situational, his intuition can act more freely, and for this reason the world will occasionally appear, even to this individual, what it constantly looks like to the intuitive extrovert, namely as a mass of possibilities and tasks. So that's part of the overall attitude of the NE Dom. Won't spend too long on this. It's mainly B. In intuitive experience, there's a spontaneous insight into the relation of a certain groups of facts, as a result of which an added significance, something quite, again, it's the relation between, it's like cross-contextual, it's finding connections. So Haley, how much time do we have?
About an hour and 30 minutes.
Okay, that's okay. So here, I like this quote from Jung. It's interesting. This is why I think Jung was NE. In the middle of his sentences, he digresses and does a comparison. Just like this. Just as sensation, when it is the dominant function, is not a mere reactive process of no further significance for the object, but an activity that seizes and shapes its object. So he always does a lot of this. In the middle of his sentences, he compares it to something else. And you could almost cut out the middle of his sentence to join it. And that's why I think he was NE very well. These little digressions in the middle of a sentence. Do you do that, Haley, when you write?
Because I always had a problem with like reading when in school you would read a paragraph or like a story and give the main point of the story. And my problem is I want to include detail. I'm so detailed. The teacher's like, that's not the main point of the story. I'm like, yes, but the detail matters. So I do feel like I'm prone to give more detail than anyone wants to know. Like in my answer to you right now, I couldn't just say yes or no. But is it NE?
Because
or is it like detail focused? Because I think that it matters.
Yeah, people need to drill down on that because they could just like take that, if they're just doing drive-by typing, as Jeff calls it, they'll go, oh, SI Dom loves detail. And it's like, it's not about that. It's about, if you drill down, Haley's coming at it from a TE point of view. And all those overlaps between SI and TE. But anyway, what do you think, Jonathan, with these kind of sentences where he compares in the middle of a sentence?
Oh, I don't think this is a good example of a digression. I think it's still kind of on topic.
Yeah, but it's this. Yeah, but it's not so much that. It's a lot of Jung's sentences where it's like, just as this, just like that.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of comparison. I just insert as much detail as needed, but I don't feel that I will say this detail, much like this other detail. Like, no, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I might do
because it's
that.
redundant.
I'm thinking of like, I want the other person to understand me, or my reader to understand my audience. So it's like comparison can definitely help.
Yeah. So sometimes what I do with Jung is, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes what I do with Jung is I read the whole sentence and then I'll cut out the bit where he does the comparison and just focus on the thing he's defining rather than this. But like, the point here is, the reason why I originally wrote this down is I wanted to emphasize this part of SE when I did it, when it was an activity that seizes and shapes its object. So this is why I don't like that word sensation. I mean, sensation is better than sensing. Sensing sounds really passive. At least sensation, there's some emotion in that word. Like someone might say, "Oh, a sensational performance," and it's like you can say, "Oh, what a great sensation." There's an emotional reaction bound in it, but sensing seems more passive. But so it's like I do argue about it's not the right word for the process, and then INTP Vanderhoop said I'm calling it instinct, and now I call it sensory instincting. I thought about calling it instinctive sensing, but I decided against that. But anyway, this thing of intuition is not mere perception or vision, but an active creative process that puts into the object just as much as it takes out. Now that's a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit NFy, but he gets to these results from observation, whole type observation. But what's the next one? Okay, Dario, I agreed with this. I very much related to this, where it's like, and this is how it's, how it's extroverting. Stimuli are springboards to generate analogies and ideas. And the analogy is the cross-contextual thinking. And then this is the bit from Douglas Adams, where the solution is too improbable. Use your opponent's weight against him. Bring those two together and create the infinite improbability drive. Now, do I have... Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip ahead. Right, that one's called... Which one's that called? 2. Right, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that 2 so that it gets in the correct order. F2. 2. Where's the other one? Oh, it's moved it further along. Wait a minute. O2. O2. Oh, I might do it on the other one. That one. Where is it? What? This is a very strange. Because it's in complete. Wait a minute. View. Sort by name, not date. Name. That's why it was all over the place. Right. There was another one. That's it. Right. That one. Rename. 02. Go there. As it should be there and there. Right. So this is from the Douglas Adams thing, and I should do the other one as 02 as well. Open, even though it's the same. F2, 02. Just to get them in the correct order. Right, so I like to give this example of transcontextual thinking. So, just two related concepts. Discovering hidden links or relationships between unrelated things, ideas, people, knownness. I really related to that. And then Dario, the ability to see patterns and relationships in one situation and match those to many other seemingly very different situations, but where that context still holds. And then this basically means any wheelhouse type, so the NP is the best at that. And then here is an example of it. And this is any combined with thinking. This is any with TI, in my opinion. So in 1992, Douglas Adams, highly likely ENTP, explained to the interviewer Melvin Bragg why he, Adams, created the infinite improbability drive to solve a plot hole. And an ENFP wouldn't have bothered with this, with their TI. They're not like wanted it properly lined up and logical, but Douglas Adams was being nerdy about the logic of it. Where, I mean, I had to recognize that some of the best stuff has actually come out of moments of desperation. Right in the early part of Hitchhiker, where Ford and Arthur are thrown out of a spaceship, a Vogon spaceship, with 30 seconds to go. That's right, with 30 seconds to live. I mean, it's very much a stock sort of. Oh, I don't. Soap. I think soap opera space. Maybe he said trope, and somehow it came out as soap. I don't know. Sort of old fashioned. Perils of Pauline. So that would be like someone who's tied to the railway, and then there's a train coming out and they get out of it, kind of stuff. That's right. But the thing I suddenly became worried about at this point, and terribly concerned about, absurdly over concerned about, was that I'd put them in an impossible situation. And that is what the sort of cliffhanger is. In which case, it's like, and you're probably thinking, Haley, well, if you don't know, think ahead. If you've not got a solution, how do I get out of it without then saying it wasn't an impossible situation after all? And I got completely and utterly. So the ENTP, I think, cares more about internal logic than ENFP. I mean, like the new Doctor Who, as in Doctor Who done this century, looks like it's been written by a bunch of ENFPs. And I like ENFPs, but I don't like them writing Doctor Who. It's got to make sense. And also, J. Michael Straczynski in this book, he goes almost apoplectic about science fiction that doesn't make sense. It's like he wants it to be logical. I just think that's an NT point of view. And he got completely and utterly stuck. I'm now stuck for days on this. And I wondered, what the hell am I going to do? And then I just happened to be seeing a television program on judo because I'm an ENTP and I'm NE and I'm into lots of different things. Whereas you, Haley, if you had this problem, it's like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip through television and watch a random program. So then he comes across this program about judo, and the instructor was explaining something rather interesting. And I tried to, and then I'm going to speculate about about the blend of NE and TI, about where it goes, where it goes from one to the other and combines. He said that when you have some sort of 18-stone opponent throwing himself at you, the answer is to use the weight of your opponent against himself. So you launch yourself through the air, you try to make him improbable. Yeah, you mean dodge. That's right. So I thought there's something interesting. That's it. That's it. I think that was the NE part. When he heard that, and it was like, ooh, there's something interesting here. And then when it starts getting into language and thought, like thought in terms of like, when it gets to this bit, use the weight of the problem against itself. Because that is where you then go in NE with TI. Is you like extracting the intuition and moving it over into the sphere of thought to go from use the weight of the opponent against himself to use the weight of the problem against itself. Do you see what I mean? It's like, as Van der Hoek would say, it moves from the sphere of intuition across into the sphere of thinking, and you're getting intuiting and thinking involved at the same time. But I think it's when he hears it and he hears that concept, oh, use the weight of the opponent against himself, it's like, ooh. And it's like, it's not thinking at that point, but it's like, ooh, there's something interesting here. And then it will like go poof into your mind as weight of the problem against itself. And you have that when it goes, I had that feeling, and then it will pop into your mind, weight of the problem against itself. So I went back to the scene and I thought, what is the problem here? Any answer I come up with to how the escape is basically very, very improbable, and the improbability is the problem. Okay, use that problem. Make the problem the solution. So I then came up with the thing called the infinite improbability drive, which is the thing that then causes them to be rescued, but also then gives an immense new impetus to the plot at that point. So, Jonathan, in your best theatrical voice, with your best voiceover voice, please read that out. You did a good job last week.
Yes, it did, but I don't know what Douglas Adams sounds like.
Wait, it doesn't
Well,
matter, but just imagine
okay.
he wasn't Scottish, but with a name like that, you can make an honorary Scot with a name like Douglas.
Oh, I've seen one of the movies. I'm trying to remember what it was. No, never mind. I'll just
Whatever
do
voice you like.
The infinite improbability drive is a wonderful new method of crossing vast interstellar distances in the mere nothingth of a second, without all that tedious mucking around in hyperspace. It was discovered by a lucky chance and then developed into a governable form of propulsion by the Galactic Government's research team on Demogran. This, briefly, is the story of his discovery. The principle of generating small amounts of finite improbability by simply hooking the logic circuits of a Bamble-Weenie 57 submeson brain to an atomic vector plotter suspended in a strong Brownian motion producer, say a nice hot cup of tea, were of course well understood. And such generators were often used to break the ice at parties by making all the molecules of the by making all the molecules and the hostesses' undergarments leap simultaneously one foot to the left in accordance with the theory of indeterminacy. Many respectable physicists said they weren't going to stand for this.
Weren't going to stand for this. Partly because it was a debasement of science.
Partly because it was the basis of science, but mostly because they didn't get invited to those sort of parties. I think I'm trying to do a Brian Blessed thing. I think he's out. Another thing they couldn't stand was the perpetual failure they encountered in trying to construct a machine which could generate the infinite improbability field needed to flip a spaceship across the mind-paralyzing distances between the further stars, and in the end they grumpily announced that such a machine was virtually impossible. Then one day a student who had been left to sweep up the lab after a particularly unsuccessful party found himself reasoning this way. If he thought to himself such a machine is a virtual impossibility, then it must logically be a finite improbability. So all I have to do is, in order to make one, is to work out exactly how improbable it is, feed that figure into the finite improbability generator, give it a fresh cup of really hot tea, and turn it on. He did this and was rather startled to find he had managed to create a long sought-after golden infinite improbability generator out of thin air. It startled him even more when, just after he was awarded the Galactic Institute's prize for extreme cleverness, he got lynched by a rampaging mob of respectable physicists who had finally realized that the one thing they really couldn't stand was a smartass.
Now that is very NTP-ish humour.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think that's very NTP-ish humour, Jonathan?
Yes. Yeah. Regarding this thing about ENFPs and plot holes, that reminds me of a very infamous video. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a guy on YouTube who's a film critic, and he made a video saying why plot holes don't matter, and he made a lot of people angry with that. He's probably an ENFP.
Wow.
I thought he was even before then, but yeah.
Pardon?
I thought he was ENFP already, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al.
Wow.
I've also been reading about Castro, and he was probably ENFP.
I mean, I could understand it from a business point of view if they make the decision of, like, less than 10% of people will see it as a plot hole.
Yeah, but this was like, this guy was defending plot holes
in general. Wow.
Pretty big movies. No.
Yeah,
like plot holes in The Last Jedi, I think it was at the time.
Oh, dearie me. That's where you get chronic writing, and it really annoys the fans to not. Basically, you want to be logical, and especially you want to make sure the way to do it, the way to convince an ENFP that plot holes are important is to say, well, don't you want to make sure that the characters are consistent, that they don't do things which are stupid? Cough, Game of Thrones. What is it? There's a bit in here. I'm just gonna have it's a bit of a sources. There's a bit where it says right, it can be done. It does. Here we go. Here's a bit. Right, there we go. when you told them, as I did on a radio show I used to host in Los Angeles, that certain plot elements in their shows made absolutely no sense whatsoever, everyone on Earth simply forgot we'd been invaded by Martians. The reply was a shrug and, it's sci-fi. There are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Either you buy into it or you don't. And that's how I think a lot of people might say that at Doctor Who. They failed to understand that for sci-fi to work, there must be rules. Actually, you wrote SF. There must be rules. There must be consistency and logic. To them, SF meant that nothing had to make sense. SF meant writing for juveniles, computer nerds, and other cases of arrested development. So put in the whiz kid who saves the day, or the funny pet that talks, or the cute robot that falls down a lot and goes bidder, bidder, bidder. Actually, I like Tweaky in Buck Rogers. Voiced by Mel Blanc. So yeah, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. And I think that is an aspect. But then again, it doesn't have to be exclusively related to Intuitum. Next slide. Oh yeah, that's just that one again. Okay, subfunctions. So Haley, do we stop at about? Do we stop in about an hour and 8 minutes?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So it gives me an idea to pace myself. Okay. Seeing the commonalities.
No more digressions. We get Jonathan to narrate a passage from Douglas Adams.
Yeah, but it's about NE. It's like it shows it's on topic. It's on top as it is within this folder. It's on topic. In Shalina's opinion, which I agree with, NE is more than just pattern recognition. This is what I've been. It's like, you know, when Jung said, just as SE sees as it is not a mirror, it sees and shapes its object, that NE puts something in. It's not just like passive. So it's like here, NE, especially in NE DOMs, NE is more than just pattern recognition because it does something once the pattern has been recognized. Like the NE DOM actively explores it. SI with NE, yeah. Consistency, yeah, because they're comparing the present with the past. Guardians. That's one way how their NE shows up, and it shows up in their associative speech in that it's tangential on a concrete level. So the Guardian will be like, oh, this reminds me of this. So they're finding the connections, but it's not connections between ideas. It's usually connections between on a concrete plane. A red jumper. Oh, my uncle had a red jumper. When this and this and this. It's all sensory bound kind of. It's what I call Guardian NE, because it's like either inferior NE or tertiary NE. And then opportunistic. Like I said, someone's left their glasses for SE. SE opportunities, concrete opportunities, whereas NE opportunities are a little bit further away, a little bit more remote, a little bit more abstract. Whereas SE opportunities are right here and now, and you can sort of see them. Just that little it's a Kersey dichotomy between immediate and remote, where Kersey have in personology the abstract types being a little bit more into remote outcomes. And then Malandrix, yeah, he wrote, is another INTP, actively exploring possibilities. So this part of NE, I sort of put under like the main part, seeing the commonalities, creating rules across situations that Guardians like. So this is a way in which the Guardians value NE because like they're looking for that rule to follow. Whereas like, you know, like the NE DOM, it's like they'll find the generalization. The NE DOM will make a lot of generalizations, but move on to another generalization. And the SJ is like, no, I like the generalization. I want the rule. And it's like, but the NPs are making the generalizations. Now that's different from society and making rules, but what you'll get is like me. I'll come up with a generalization and throw it out there to test it, and I don't mind if it gets shot down because I'll come up with another one in 5 minutes. Wilderness possibilities to explore. That's why it's assertive, actively exploring possibilities. And so the NE DOMs are more likely to do this than the NE auxiliary types, INFP and INTP. Cross-contextual thinking and a particular kind of humor. Douglas Adams created metaphors based on and Aristotle wrote that, well, via the notes or via other people in translation, did write that he said that the ability to come up with metaphors depends on the perception of similarities. And then I put here for harmonizing, looking at things from different points of view. Like ENTP is good at that in debates. They can look at something from lots of different points of view, and they take pride in that. They take pride in one night winning debate from one side of the argument, and the next night winning the argument from the other side of the debate, because they can just argue lots of different points of view and be sort of like a lawyer who can argue for the prosecution and defense. What else? Then it's a bit on the roles. This isn't as persuasive as it's not as like the other ones really jump out more. Like I banged on a lot about NI and guiding people, and NI in like project development, like the coordinating and the mentoring. It's sort of less so where you've got mentoring and constructing, but it's like it's TI, which is abstract, where it's you're constructing a system, constructing a model, and even Socionics calls TI structural logic because their definition of TI is biased towards NTPs, because there's more NTPs in Socionics than there are STPs, and so there's a bias, and there's also a bias in Socionics towards NE and TI. But the mediator role is that, like the bit where I said, like, seeing different points of view. In the mediator, seeing different points of view, if you look at it like this, like, say, a marriage guidance counselor, or does just the mediator role, looking at something from different points of view, consistent with an informing role, rather than a directive role, where you've got this directive role of actively guiding somebody, and then this informing role of mediator. And again, with the NE, seeing lots of different options where you could look at it like this, you could look at it like that. Whereas with the NI, seeing more of a clear path. And then with constructing a system. So they're not as convincing as the other ones, but you can see it there, can't you? The social plane of NE with TI and NE with FI. And again, FI can be about close relationships as well. Reconciler. So yeah, that meant reconciling alienates. Now, of course, I'm not so sure advocating a cause is directly mediating, but maybe the way they go about it, ENFP. Any comments on this, Jonathan?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Oh yeah, so this is I really sort of went Kersey plus in this, but you need to be a bit of a Kersey nerd to sort of like get into this. I sort of like went a little bit further. So abstract. So I was sort of like understanding functions in Kersey terms, like translating them into Kersey terms. So NE would be abstract inquiry. NI would be abstract enterprise direction. Right. What we got? NFP are double inquiring. ENFP is double nosy curious for sure. Ideas and feelings. Inquire into its own and another's feeling. SFP is single inquiring. NTJs are double enterprising. Haley would agree with that. Value SE, but they're the least utilitarian of the utilitarians due to the strong TE. NTPs are single inquiring and single utilitarian. I thought they were double utilitarian. Oh no, it's STPs that are double utilitarian. Yeah. Yeah, the reason why is they're double utilitarian because SE is utilitarian and TI is utilitarian. Whereas NE is not necessarily utilitarian. So this is why STPs are the most sort of like unrule bound. They're like double utilitarian, don't want to be told what to do, the STPs. As I put there, NTPs, so not as criminal as STPs. Although part of that is like taking chances. I'm getting into the stereotypology now. Right. Enterprising thinking for TE, utilitarian thinking for TI, but that's in the weeds. This, I went off on one on Olga. I went off on one on Socionics. I really went off on one. So I got a bee in my bonnet about NE. If you want to read that, Jonathan, any comments? Because I was going, I was having a go at the Socionics, all this pseudo physics it uses. Yeah, so if the potential is in the object, why do 10 different ENTPs have different ideas when they look at that object?
Yeah. Yes, totally. Yeah.
Which bit amused you, Jonathan?
I think we both know which bit amused me. The last bit. The death ray.
ENTP can't be trusted.
Yeah, that too. That and the death ray. Same thing.
Which bit?
The death ray.
The death ray.
Death ray.
Oh,
Tesla
death ray.
death
Where did I put death ray? Oh,
Even
right.
Tesla.
Oh, yeah, he did. He did. He told the US Army he could develop a death ray.
I'd heard the story, yes, but that's still funny.
I mean, did you think that might puts him in the ENTP category? Like,
yeah, it could be. Do you think that's because he was just making things up, or do you think it's because he convinced himself it was true? He could make a death ray in his mind.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, because it's like, you know how Douglas Adams, he put himself in that position where, like, he has them outside the ship thinking, oh, I'm going to come up with this. So maybe it was like, I'll say it and then I'll come up with a solution later on. Because he's like, but one of the things that was interesting about Tesla is it was in the Kersey book that may change his typo is that apparently he could, but again, we don't know if this was propaganda on his behalf, because Douglas Adams had propaganda about, oh, he wrote stuff really quickly because he was going up against deadlines. Well, in the actual case where that happened, which was the second radio series of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it wasn't very good and it was a bit of a first draft because the series came out early because they wanted to do them on consecutive days. They wanted to get the cover on the Radio Times. It's not very important, but in a case where we knew he was up against the clock, and also there's other times where Douglas Adams says, oh, he worked a load of time to get the dialogue just right. So what is it, Douglas? Is it spending loads of time to prune the dialogue and get it right, or is it up against the clock and doing stuff at the last minute? So there is a tendency for ENTPs to create a mythology about themselves to make themselves look more impressive. But it was said, Kersey wrote that Tesla had the ability to see an invention in his mind, to see all the bits working together and how that might work. I can do a little bit of that, like imagining how stuff would go together. So, but very faintly. So I can see how that would be possible. I just think it would be I mean, obviously it was an extremely, like, when you go through his list of inventions, it really was remarkable. So we don't know if he was maybe an ENTP with that SI, or maybe, I don't think every inventor has to be an ENTP. What about if he was ISTP? Because that would be consistent with that strong SI imaginative aspect to be able to see what's going on. Could Tesla have been ISTP?
With an ISTP promise to build a death ray?
They might think it's cool. STPs.
I mean,
I don't know, but again, it's like sometimes these extreme examples where these are these people who are like really out of the ordinary. So I mean, it is possible. I mean,
it was known as a bit He was known as a bit of a showman though as well, which isn't very
Right. Yeah, that's a bit ENTP-ish.
and
So maybe just the way his brain works, maybe practice as well. Because Dario has said that practice will change your brain, like these non-type factors will change your brain. And maybe he just had an imagination and it was trained up over decades, and he got to this point where he could imagine mechanisms in his mind to see if it would work before he would build it. So maybe it's just practice.
Yeah.
Um,
by the way, I want to say that Haley and I's idea of demonstrating NA is just to let Ben talk.
Right, and then oh yeah, that's the same thing where, and that's what I was complaining about in the definitions that Olga was using from Model A. Right, Fi is electromagnetic waves. I don't think. Oh, anything else after this? Oh yeah. Then we get to the fun after that. We'll do the fun. I think Bjork's an ENFP. There she is, laying an egg. What do you think? Like, Bjork is ENFP. What do you reckon, Jonathan? She's ENFP AF is Bjork.
Okay.
Nice legs as well. Is that the thing about? Is there a post there about? Yes. Is this the bit about the people about why people think she's an ENFP? 4 reasons Bjork might be ENFP. Right. I'm gonna not go through this in detail. I'm just gonna let people pause it and see it. The FI type, the Biophilia Project. So do you think she's ENFP, Jonathan? AF subtype?
What AF so?
As split. ENFP as split.
Oh,
Just like Donald Trump is an ESTP AF subtype.
you should probably leave a link to this just to
Right, I don't know where it is. Someone looks for that. 4 reasons Bjork might be ENFP. Hannah Strachan. Right, but anyway, getting back to... Oh, yes. Right, someone's comment. You might agree with this. What do you think about that, Jonathan? Mark Rhodes' comment. This reads like someone's amphetamine psychosis fever dream, but there's just enough legit information here to make it worth considering.
Yeah.
ENTPNE. No, NTPNE. Oh, and I think this is an ENFP. What do you reckon?
Yes.
Right, anyway, features of NE. We might want to be on this for about half an hour. Because, it's... Right. Again, Dario's language at the time. Often perceive how a pattern or dynamic is emerging. Okay, emerging. Okay. Oh, okay. E.g. in stock market. So, yeah, Peter Schiff always talks about... Well, he frequently says... He does a lot of NE humor as well. I won't get into his NE polar... no, not... I mean, FI polar statements. But, he once did a actual comedy routine poking holes in the rape allegations of the woman who was testifying someone who was going to go on the Supreme Court. And I'm he was right and he was proven right, but it's Peter, don't go there. And it's and he was finding the comedy in the holes in her argument. And it's that's sort of the inappropriateness that you can get with the ENTP. So I'm just saying that in order to say, I think Peter Schiff's the ENTP. And so one of the things he says that he talks about, why can't people join together these rather obvious dots? And so with him, he is seeing the dynamics in a market. And also, again, because of his social field, because of Peter Schiff's line of work, working as a stockbroker and all of these things, his TE is as strong as an ENTJ. But he's ENTP. But weirdly, how about this, Jonathan? I think Peter Schiff's tri-type is 713 wing 8.
Okay.
An ENTP with a 1 in there. Like,
Okay.
because he gets on his high horse about, and I think a lot of that's come from his father, because his father was locked up as a tax protester. But again, often perceive how a pattern or dynamic is emerging. But you see, the thing is, though, do you think that could be NI as well, Jonathan?
Often perceive how a pattern is or dynamic is emerging. Yeah, I can see that.
But I can see how it's external.
It did
But again,
confuse. It did confuse me in the past when NE was associated with pattern recognition, because I did associate that with NI. So it was like,
yeah. I mean, I think what it might be is I've just got a. This is a slight digression, but not a total digression. It's just to show how. Oh, okay. Okay. If you just reverse, if you reverse all these charges, then you'll get NI, FI, FE, and NE. And so INFJ would have NE here. So it is quite a strong function. It's like in the top 4. It's just sort of ignored. Backseat driver. Ignore the backseat driver. Sometimes the backseat driver might say something that's interesting. And this is just to show, again, dominant NE in ENFP, NEF, dominant NE in NET, or collaborator idealist. I sort of come up with these names from Kersey because I didn't want to use diplomatic collaborator, diplomatic accommodator, that sort of thing. But they're extracted from Kersey. So this is collaborator rational, net, that NE dom. I have it's a wheelhouse, an in your wheelhouse function for INFP, situational NE, but frequently combined with FI. And for my type, NE with TI, and it's an in your wheelhouse function. And now going back to what I was sort of saying there is that, so for Haley, her type would be all of these but reversed. So that would be NI, TI, TE, NE. And again, 4th slot in the background, NE. And so you'll have ideas in that lot, but you'll tend to do a lot more filtering than the NTPs. Right. They won't act on the NE as much. Right, yes, I asked Dario about this. When he put unrelated ideas, and he said that Linda Berens objected to that as well, that they're not unrelated. And then Dario said, yes, but everybody else sees it that way. Everybody else sees it as unrelated.
well, I can see how it's related, but I can also see how it's a tangent. Like, you didn't have to say that. I can see how you got. I can see how you went. I can see the path you're on, and I can see that you just kind of went on a different path that connects to that path.
That might be an example of the NE backseat driver, where you understand it and you don't value it.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's a very good example you're giving there, Jonathan, of the NE as in a backseat driver position. Whereas, say, somebody who is NE allergic wouldn't even see the connection.
Oh yeah, I was in one of the first classes I did with Catherine. There was someone there who I think was in ISFP, because what Catherine does is she'll give the lesson and put you into little groups to discuss. And this person could not understand a single thing Catherine had been saying, because she went in so many tangents and connections. Yeah, I'm not going to entertain Ben's thoughts on Catherine's Jungian type, because she isn't any type, whether he agrees with it or not.
Yeah. Someone was able to convince me that ENTJ ADHD.
I told it to someone else what you thought, and they thought, they just thought it was funny that you thought that, because Yeah, I'm not going to say what they said. But
Right, okay. But you have more experience of her than I do. So anyway,
you do
but
remind me.
I don't think she ideates enough.
I think she ideas too much.
Right,
Oh no, no, not perhaps not as much as you.
thank you.
Like so rude.
How about this one? Unrelated ideas, potential that might. Yeah. Off of it and what potential? That sort of feeling of potential, the value in the potential in the new ideas. Whereas you and Haley, I think you're. Yes, maybe write it down, come to it later, but we're not going off the plan. And then this one: keep following tangents and new ideas without limiting yourself to one. Direct opposite to NI, to NJ's, without ADHD. This one I didn't know. This one is like very like ENFP-ish. Engage life's magical moments and coincidences as they happen. So it's like I couldn't give myself a full tick for that. I'm not going to tick all of these boxes and go, I'm all of these. No, I wanted to be honest in my box coloring. And then this, like, what do you think this means, Jonathan, by engaging brainstorming?
Engaging.
Does it mean mind maps, or does it mean in a group with a load of other people?
I think they can do it by themselves all the time, or with people. Like just, it seems like a pretty self-evident thing. They're just brainstorming ideas, like just
In my experience, they don't have a preference. Well, maybe they have a preference to do it with other people because the ENFP I know just feeds off of other people. But he's more than happy to do this on his own, just kind of sitting there like, okay, what could I do? I could do this. Oh, I could do that. And it could lead to that. Or we could do this way. And I'm like, one thing at a time. But he's very happy to do it on his own and seems to have more than enough energy to just sit there and idea, and all over the place. But again, it's not just ideas. It's often like idea, and we could do this with that. Or we could have this idea, and then, but that could accomplish this with that idea, or this idea, and then we could do like, so just continual influx of ideas and often taking him away from the actual point of why we were sitting down to think about what we could do in the first place. And I'm going to mute now.
So, but he trained Haley up to be ready for me. Because she had this experience of all this NE before. All right.
That's really funny. I never thought of that before. That is pretty true.
But, yeah, but
He's
I could have
so high energy though.
I could have gone next level. He was your training bra for me.
Yeah, actually, that's I've never thought of that before, but that's pretty true.
Right, okay. Engaging. Okay, just what emerges. Try new ideas. Here we go. Try new ideas and interactions because they are new and different. And that is how it's different from SI. Agree, Jonathan? SI is not going to try a new idea just because it's new and different.
well, SJs might because they're going into NE, but yeah.
But the way
they'll do it like it'll be out of character, more out of character when SJ does it.
And they do it more when they get older and they have these quirky moments. And it's sort of narrow uses in which...
Or they've fallen under the influence of some NP.
Yeah. It's like one of them I know says, oh, I like that one. It was a bit different. And then other times you'd say, oh, it was a bit strange. So it's like, they don't want it too different. They don't want it too... If it's too different, it's strange. It's like just enough. Because it's in that that B-side column. And it also can depend on development. I think ESFJ can develop NE especially for humor. Trying new ideas and so then it's for humor to entertain other people. So there's an FE reason for doing it because they are new and different. And so that gets with like project initiation. Oh, there's a bit in the Kersey profile. And this is about, here it is, Kersey, and this is like for all the socionics people out there that type the Kersey architect as an ILI, you are wrong. Listen to this. If an organization is to get their most out of an architect rational, they need to supply him, her with an effective support staff to capture the ideas as they emerge before they lose interest and move on to another idea. There's your NE value in Kersey's INTP profile, which was based on himself, but mostly on his son, David Mark Kersey, who might be one of the most INTP people ever, given that he has come up with a system of information using group theory to understand subatomic particles. So he thinks that talk about transcontextual thinking using information theory and mapping them on. So he thinks there's a thing out there, Haley, it really is called this. He thinks that gravity is the tits group, and he thinks there is an actual thing, it is actually called that, and he thinks that the Higgs boson is the monster group. And so it's like all this stuff in complex group theory, and he's related it on an information level. And so basically he's found a way of describing the universe in terms of information in this complex mathematics. So he is INTP as heck, David Mark Kersey. Right. Enjoy playing with random interconnections and patterns. Enjoy. Yes, random in quotation marks. Weave into the current dynamics of a situation aspects of other randomly seeming to non-NPs, random seeming contexts. Weave into the current dynamics of a situation aspects of... Is that what I'm doing now? Jonathan, am I doing this now? Or whenever I digress, I'm weaving into, like, this is the current dynamics of this situation. We're doing an event on NE.
I wouldn't say you're doing it right now, but you've done it
recently in the last 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Last 10 minutes, the last 15 minutes, the last 20 minutes, the last 25 minutes. But no, this particular.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, often when you go off on a tangent, I can see the relation and why you're bringing it up, but I'm like, this is so, like, yes, it's we can argue connections there, but it is like such a stretch for the connection that I would never bring it up in the discussion, like, personally.
Right. So we did the Bjork laying an egg.
She does have nice legs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's just the. I'm not going to read this through. This is just Kersey's definition of ENFP. I'm just going to, for people to, because we've got like 35 minutes. Yeah, networking. Yeah, love people. Yeah, enthusiastic. Yeah. Yeah. Authentic. Yeah, with the FI. And it's just all. I like how he's got green for idealists, because that's the color I choose for idealists. Outlets for inspirations, eclectic, lots of different interests. Yeah. So ENFP. Oh yeah, ENFP's brain. Let's because how much have I got left? Because I've got various. Oh yeah, I've got some more of those slides, and then stuff on ADHD. And certain aspects, and like we can sort of like distinguish between SE ADHD and NE ADHD. I like, for some reason, like the spelling, the spelling mistakes in this seem deliberate. it's just they're just funny in the way they're misspelt, and it's like, and it's such a trend through all the graphics. It's like this has got to be deliberate. It's not the case of like this is just some creative somebody, not just the creative somebody in say Asia who doesn't know English very well. I think that this is like deliberately, because I don't know who made these. There's just these deliberate spelling mistakes that I see as deliberate just because of the way it's done. That it looks like it's done deliberately for humor. Unicorns, right. I do think she's this, and this is SI inferior. This is how I see ENFP. People like, do you know who Timmy Mallet is, Jonathan? Right,
No.
Timmy Mallet. If you look up Haley, if you look up Timmy Mallet and then put him on screen, he will dress like that. Also, if you look up Sue Pollard, I'll write the names.
Yeah,
down for
write
you.
the name for me, please.
Right, ENFP. Like, if someone's got green hair, first type, look for ENFP.
I'm a little disturbed because I just wrote in Timmy and then it came up to Timmy Mallet as the first option.
Right. You don't usually
Okay.
get that laugh out of me.
I'm gonna share my screen. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Is that inferior
Okay, can you
SI?
see it?
Yeah, it really is a 7. That's how they dress. Do you see what I mean? It's like the same kind of thing.
Stereotypically, that's how.
Yeah, stereotypically. So
Yeah.
if you look for Timmy Mallet as well,
Okay, one second.
it could be her brother.
Oops. Yes.
You see what I mean? It's like he could
see
be
what
her
I mean?
brother.
You see what I mean? It was the first option.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, first option. Like it's
These computers are spying on us, listening to us.
right, but this you can see that with the ENFP. It's like they can be like the most noticeable. What was this? Oh yes, this was from someone in real life who I think could be ENFP. I can be extremely outgoing at some specific points. Heck, I have even been in Tesco dressed as a horse. Now, also that shows comedic ability, because putting the heck in there builds it. It's just the way it's phrased. Putting the heck in there, it shows the comedic ability of the way that that's been constructed. Heck, I've even been in Tesco dressed as a horse. There's just these little bits in the precision of it. Yeah. Yeah. What's this? What did I write? Any how to mind map. Yes. How to mind map a mind map. Right. We don't need to go on that too much. Oh, any from Jung's point of view. Expectancy, vision, and penetration, but only from the subsequent result can it be established how much of what was seen was actually in the object. Maybe that might be the difference between like possibility and opportunity, where I think that SE is a bit more immediate and NE is a bit more remote. Direct attention to the physical surface, to the very things around which the intuition tries to appear. Intuition tries to represent or hide. Again, it's doing the comparison thing. Widest range of possibilities. It is constantly seeking fresh outlets and new possibilities in external life. The only way to say to put it with the fruits of his labours, running away from every new possibility, quitting his newly planted fields. So, any comments? Okay, Jonathan. You could have just shaken your head like Haley without like going through the palaver. Oh, metaphor.
Well, I wasn't sure if I was going to have comments or not.
Okay. So this is written by Pat Patterson, and I think Pat Patterson's an ISFP because he doesn't like songs that digress all over the place. And I once showed you a Pet Shop Boys song, and it's like West End Girls, and you thought it went all over the place. And so it's like, do you think that could be an NFP song? Do you think the Pet Shop Boys could be NFPs, Jonathan? Or at least Neil Tennant's?
Sure. I'm not Trying to remember the song.
Right. Yeah, it goes all over the place.
West End.
Yeah, but
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
But Pat Patterson's always going on about prosody. Everything needs to fit together. And he gave an example of a song that he didn't like, and it sounded like an ENFP song. Oh, this terrible, disastrous thing happened in America. Let's switch to another country. A terrible, disastrous thing happens here. Terrible, disastrous, and he thought he did not like that, and he gave that an example of a song not to write because it kept on. He wants everyone to stick with one theme and develop it, and everything be integrated. And I thought that is NE polar. But he's an interesting guy, Pat Patterson. He's got a PhD in philosophy, but he's this songwriting guru. I've read 1, 2, 3, 4 of his books, and I read his rhyming book twice about family rhymes and all these kind of things. And I've seen videos with him. I think he's ISFP. And here he is writing about metaphors. So this might be how an ISFP would describe a metaphor. Anyway, Jonathan, if you read that out and give your thoughts, please, because you have a nice reading voice.
Welcome to challenge number 2. After what you've just done, writing from your senses on who, what, where, and when, this challenge is a natural follow-up. All those specifics you learn to wade into can be even more interesting if they're not only what they are, but become more than they are. They can transform or be transformed if they are seen through the lens of another idea. Added weight, added meaning. A metaphor is a collision between ideas, one idea crunched into the other, which is itself a metaphor. Metaphors aren't really collisions unless you think of ideas as cars and some of them running into each other and colliding. Then you could think about ideas in car terms. That's a digression. There's an any digression right there describing the. Think of the word like collision as establishing a tone center, like a musical key. Some notes belong fully with it. Some have a bit of tension in their relationship, still belong to the family. These are called diatonic to or related to the idea. Two ideas collide when they are different keys, different families, like idea and collision. A third thing emerges, a chord that contains them both, a metaphor.
Yeah, it gets very technical, Pat Patterson. So it's like I've talked about the shift between ISFP and INTP. Jonathan, yes?
I've just read the whole thing and I still don't know what a metaphor is.
I've also put there the danger is that idea B is filtered through idea A, not really a problem in fiction. Scan this page. I thought that Bradley Rogers. Voiding ideas, lens through another idea. Oh yeah, what do I call this? Any problems? These could be any problems.
It just makes me realize that those Enneagram, the Enneagram ones that are like this, they must have been made by any type.
The ones that I kept asking Jonathan, are these all right? He says, Ben, they're fine. Stop asking me.
Yeah. That explains why they annoy me.
Right. Any problems with time mind map? Right. Well, oh, hey. Oh, this joke. I did this joke with Haley. Yes. What is it? Yes. So what it was is in the original you had two Japanese twins, and they were sort of like inspecting it like this. And this was in a magazine, and I entered the caption competition, and I wrote, 2 present hungry birthday boys refuse to be deterred by new craze in gift wrap. Because to me, that's what it looks like. I've got to open these presents. Like, this guy is present hungry. Refuse to be deterred by new craze in gift wrap. Right. And then there we go. NE storytelling. Do you agree, Jonathan?
I mean, I wouldn't ever phrase it like this because I'm far more polite, but
So does your ENFP friend Haley do all this?
you're muted.
Yeah, she's nodding. Right, then we've got this is from the NE event that we did with Victor Galenka. I might have added the definition. They use novelty. We've seen that before. Try oneself in new business, personal affairs. So this is what we can basically say from this is that at least Victor Galenka's version of NE is the same as the NE that I've been describing. Non-standard ideas, brainstorming, bold analogies. Although Victor associates risk exclusively with NE, whereas I say there's different kinds of risks. Physical risks are SE, abstract risks are NE. Innovator like the NTP, generator, accentuation. Attention deficit syndrome and hyperactivity. I have some bits on that that we can go through after I've done those jokes. Then we'll go into the ADHD stuff. Emotion of Ekman, curiosity. Maybe, yeah, they are curious, especially ENFPs are so nosy. ENFPs are really nosy. Double curious. Fast and sound in external unique achievements. Yeah. Compensation, falls and disappointment, search for internal significance. I don't know about that. Fans, pioneer, followers, yeah. Enneagram. Oh, Enneagram. Yes, but here's the thing. You can get sensory Enneagram 7s. You can get sensory Enneagram.
I was just going to ask that. What's the most common tri-type for an ENFP?
Well,
or E-core and tri-type?
Well, I don't want to talk about tri-type for various reasons. I'm
Sorry,
not sure what the most common would be anyway. But
you usually got a 7 in there.
Usually, well, arguably the most common type for ENFP is actually 6 with a 7 wing.
Yeah.
But yes, like 6 wing 7 and 7s are usually the most common stereotypical ENFPs. Yeah. Also, maybe 4s and 2.
You can have a 9 as well. I mean, we typed Miriam as a 9. You can have an ENFP 9.
Yeah, you do get type 8 ENFPs as well.
Ooh, I'll push back hard on that, but we're not going to get into that. That's a distraction. A big time pushback.
Well, Catherine,
just because, well, never mind all of that. I think she's mistyped it. I mean, also might be the factor of just because someone is highly rebellious, which ENFPs are, it doesn't mean that they're an 8. And she might wonder why he's being highly rebellious, and that's because of the way she acts, and he's rebelling against her, and so
who are you talking?
Anyway,
what? I don't know who you're talking about now.
No, I won't clarify. It might get offensive. Right. Right. Yeah. So I don't think ENFPs are 8s because I don't think it matches interaction style.
Well, that's
ENFPs are collaborative.
I think
8s are directive.
I think
otherwise we have to change the definition of 8.
I think Castro was an ENFP 8. That's my opinion. But
right. But I've had this thing before about how we approach Enneagram, whether we approach it as a type or a fixation. And if you go completely deductively, then you can have more options for who can have certain Enneagrams. So, for example, if you do the 5 and go purely on competence, then I think you can go beyond INTP and INTJ. But that's a separate discussion. Any thought processes? Yes, that can be a bit any. Is this like me, Jonathan?
I'm very proud of you for saying that's a separate discussion. We should move on. Extreme version of this thought, sub thoughts. Okay, bunch of sub thoughts. Windows app good. Yes, okay. Oh, it's pretty easy to read.
Yeah.
Because all bunch of sub thoughts.
Yeah. playing devil's advocate to this thought, especially if 7 wings 6. All right, or 6 wings 7 or whatever. Yeah, he is a flipping ENTP.
I once asked an ENTP called Boris, who's from German, and I was in the live chat of a video. Someone was interviewing an ENTP called Boris Joyce Bing, and I asked him about that, and he just laughed because he didn't think that Boris Johnson was an ENTP.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, though, you need to look at the fact of
I agree he
Like,
has an
there's-
ENTP.
the way he behaves, like what he studied at university. He
Uh-huh.
studied
Classic.
Latin and Greek. Yeah, but classics in that, like, in the original languages. And part of the course was in the exam, you have to translate the original source into English from Latin and Greek. And he went to Eton, and he was very well educated, and he was actually voted into POP, which is like sort of an exclusive group in Eton. It's just that his like
He doesn't. He thinks he thinks knowledge is fun
yeah, and
rather than something to be taken too seriously.
also something we might do in the future with Witzer is like the nature of power and arrogance can really undercut somebody. I mean, I used to think that unhealthiness doesn't affect the intellect, but actually it does affect the intellect because people can get arrogant and think they're always right and not check on certain things, and it can actually lead them to like confirmation bias and stuff like that. So just as ego problems can ruin FI and ruin feeling, it can actually ruin thinking as well, so that you can get these people who are like really smart. When you look at their background, they're like really smart, but it's like they do these really stupid things. And then you look closer and you realize that it's because of their arrogance and attitude problems that have led them down this road. So a lot of people would see Boris Johnson and they literally think that he's a clown, he's a buffoon, but they don't realize that it's his attitudes and sort of like non-thinky factors that have corrupted his intellect. When you get somebody who is smart, but they say and do stupid things. And a lot of that can be arrogance. Like there's an arrogant ENTP. Jeff said he was the most ENTP of the doctors. And again, the same kind of flipping dress sense. But Ben, you're just picking all the ones that are the same.
I would say this is the 7 dress sense.
Right.
Very much.
The 7, I mean, some ESFPs might say, get out of here, we're more stylish than that. Random. Actually, I've got one of these, but better.
Yeah.
But what I got was the photographer's jacket instead. So, Haley, if you want to switch it for me for about half a minute, then I can show what's in this.
You're muted. You're muted, Haley.
Right, okay. So that'll be good enough. So yeah, lots of pockets on there. So it's like the interviews, I have a thing for this, I have a thing for that. And sometimes wear that when I go out, like during a day in town, like I have all the little odds and sods in there. Got my mask in there and everything. Right.
Okay, that's a very INTP.
Right. So if you then go back to the slideshow, Haley,
Yeah,
another
pardon me.
I think he's an ENTP. And again, he's talking about the ideas of like putting satellites in space to reflect the light and to light up Russian cities. And I think that is an ENTP idea. Is it not? Let's put mirrors in space to reflect the light so that we can have more light in Siberia in the winter. And that's her looking at him thinking, you're an ENTP. You're a weirdo. What do you
That
think?
happened.
I think his ENTP is interested in all these wacky ideas, and he dresses like that. ENTP. That is an inferior SI.
That
I
happened.
think
In,
that's-
Combined with NE.
that happened in a James Bond film once. The bad guy put a satellite in space that was just a giant mirror, and he used it to burn things.
Yeah. But this is what it is. It's like right there at the top. It says on the video, Russian satellites to light up entire cities in Russia's north join polar nights.
the look on her face. It's just.
But ENTP ideas, and Haley's probably like, "Have you run the numbers on this? Like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
much
that's
would it
probably what she's
take?"
thinking. Like, are you really?
I wouldn't mind doing an event with her. Anyway, right. 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 So ADHD things. Right. We have. Oh God, we only have 13 minutes. So the different types of ADHD. So again, the inattentive type, the hyperactive type is a little bit more SEE. I was like this when I was like under 7, like very hyperactive.
Well, you're not like this now.
I'm not hyperactive, but I am like inattentive. Again, before I knew it, before you're 7 years old. So do you think I'm ADHD, Jonathan?
I,
Right. Yeah, listen, it's like,
you've said it, of course. So of course you are, but yeah.
well, maybe I don't know. I can't be sure though. I don't want to. Okay, accentuating the positive. So there's some overlap here with some. It's just bits that sound NE. Like both of these writers have ADHD or been diagnosed with ADHD, and like they're both doctors, or one of them is. So here we go. And I just look in here at some of these features, and whether it overlaps with any like the bits that overlap with SE, because I think there's SE ADHD and NE ADHD. Like Kersey, he thought it was all a hoax. He thought it was just artisan temperament. But I was like, no, I'm going to disagree with you. One of the rare times I disagree with Kersey. And it's like, no, you can have, it can be not just artisan temperament. But I actually had some backstory about that, about why he got to that place. Because Kersey lived through the era of they were drugging up all the school kids that were misbehaving in order to make them behave. And so he had a sort of reaction against that and said that the ADHD was a con and it was just artisan kids. But now we know more. But I think what it is a combination of SE and NE.
Now we know it's really the NTP kids. They're the
Well, I don't know, but it's you know what I mean, because it's like the hyperactive is more like the SE DOMs.
Yeah.
Like it's like with E7 as well. Like the SE DOM E7s are more likely to be hyperactive, and the NE DOMs are more likely to show this. Again,
you get the same thing with Asperger's, where like you get the list of criteria, and it's kind of vague and open ended that a whole bunch of people
Right.
get.
Right, so Jonathan, I've got quite a few of these slides to get through. So anything jump out on you, like any comments on what I've highlighted? Any disagreements or agreements in my tagging?
No.
Right, so this bit, any, you agree that this is any related? Right, okay.
Correlates.
Yeah.
Or correlates, yeah.
Right, and then this bit here, I think I can see this, like, again, it's a blessing and a curse. Again, we've not got that much time. And then, okay, some capitalizing on creativity, and then which bits are any and which bits are not. Again, lots of thoughts coming and going. Thoughts are constantly springing up. Is that like me? Because I can't be sure.
I feel you do have lots of thoughts. Like very, like I can see the connection, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't think I would go there that easily.
Yeah.
So
But
you can see what
yeah. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just say, Jonathan, you can see here that there's going to be some people who are strong with NE who can get diagnosed as ADHD, but I also think there's those people who are strong with SE who can get misdiagnosed as ADHD. And what it is for the ones with strong SE, it's just that their threshold for paying attention is higher. But once that stimulus is there, SE DOMs can pay attention better than anyone else. It's just that when they're bored, they can look ADHD. And that's why there's some of the data is contradictory in the ADHD research. And I'm like, well, if you knew about typology, you'd realize that these are SE DOMs are different from these NE DOMs.
To be honest, that's true for a whole bunch of conditions in psychology, where it's because they're described in a certain way, they're like lots of people meet the criteria, even though they're quite different.
Yep. Oh yeah, I was saying here that sounds like ENFP, TI break. Yeah. Got to work about artisan for this bit. Thrive in chaos. I mean, thrive in chaos. I lean more towards that for the artisan ADHD. Yeah, and you can get like STPs as like tactical traders, the day traders. The day traders. Yep. What else? So I've got a lot of these. Right. So there's not that many. Try and pace it right. Right. Risk-taking nature. So I think, so whenever it's in orange, I think it's more SE kind of ADHD, or rather, the SPs that have ADHD. The risk-taking nature of some people with ADHD, and also this book's from about early noughties, but it says that this book thinks that ADHD might get split up into a number of conditions in future. I don't know if that's quite happened yet, where it's been split up. Again, here the ability, this impulsivity, mundane, risk and stimulate. That, to me, that's SE, risk and stimulation. The risks you take don't need to be physical; they can be mental. No. Again, it depends whether it's what's this EP stuff. They don't like being told what to do and often believe that their ideas are the best ones. Right, what else? Exploring ambition. Not complete. This bit I've put under, or is it? Many people with this ability are also able to intuit things about others or their surroundings. Maybe towards that. Maybe ENFP, ADHD, intuit things about others. Right. Okay, a bit more here. Okay, so we've got adaptability. Artisans, one of their self-image words is adaptability. So if you have ADHD, blimey. Who was that? Was that Haley? Was that Jonathan?
That was me. Sorry, it's got a notification.
Right. Okay. If you have ADHD, you don't always focus in a linear, logical manner. Do I not always focus in a linear, logical manner? You may be more suited than others to pick up on the millions of clues that the unconscious mind uses to perceive. I like how it put the unconscious mind in there and relating that to intuition. That's what we call intuition, because not everyone else does. But I relate intuition to the unconscious. This ability really stems from not getting caught up in the ordinary perceptual protocols that are currency of everyday life. Oh, I think I underlined that in blue because lower SI. So, for instance, the higher SI people are more likely to get caught up in the ordinary perceptual protocols that are the currency of everyday life, because the ones with higher SI are looking at the world how it should be, and how it's sort of like a little bit more affected by how they want it. Oh no, I can't explain this very well. Yes, the ordinary perceptual protocols, more conventional in how things should be and normal and orthodox, sort of a lens of orthodoxy. Whereas if you're high in NE, you're low in SI, even if you value it. Do you see what I mean? Like that sort of opposition there. Not getting caught up in the ordinary perceptual protocols, whereas I think the Guardians do get caught up in the ordinary perceptual protocols that are the currency of everyday life, because that's the part of being a Guardian, being orthodox. And so the way they think is going to be orthodox as well to their particular culture and subculture. Right, might be NFPs. With this intuition often comes a deep well of empathy and compassion for other people. That's because you can see them through the. That's not going to be ENTP. That's going to be NFPs. The similarities of conventional experience to understand the basic similarities of. Yeah, I think NFPs. What do you think, Jonathan? Does that sound NFP?
Yeah, it says more NFP.
Yeah, and then here I think this is more artisan kind of ADHD, because adaptability is a big self-image thing. But,
yeah, wait, 5 minutes been.
yeah, I know. How long? 3 minutes. Like people with ADHD are often highly adaptable. The wall is the point when the person with ADHD can't really adaptability alone to get them by. The wall, yeah. A little bit more. It's one more page. No, 2 more pages, but there's something that. What's this? High energy with desire for stimulation. That's SP artisans. That there are the SP ADHD. Oh, here we go. All these positive traits really look good, don't they? By now you're probably wondering where you can get some of these attributes. I thought that was a funny line. MA is mildly amusing. Winston Churchill, ESTP. I did think that's high. Is that what you sort of see now, Jonathan, in the results? 3 to 6% as ADHD? It's an old book.
I don't know the statistics, so.
Well, did we just say when it's from? So yeah, this is ADHD for Dummies, and this is.
I'm not sure if I agree with some of these examples.
Well, yeah, but they're sort of useful for like trying to find.
Yeah.
Again, it's 2005.
Again, it's just a question of do they have ADHD or are they just?
Yeah, well, I'm mainly relating these aspects to.
Yeah.
Like NE and SE. Right, I think is that the last one? Yes, that's the last one. Right, anything else there? Right.
I kind of feel like what we're doing is saying, because I've had a bunch of people try to tell me I've got Asperger's and this, similar. So it's like saying someone with FE break or poor FE, oh, like you have this, or if you're high, like do you have high NE or ADHD? It's
I would.
There will
it's
be
just
similarities.
Like Jonathan and we did a thing on Trump where we put him on the psychopathic spectrum, but he didn't qualify as a psychopath. But that's like most ESTPs would go on there, and I think most people with like IXTX preferences, especially when younger, could be put on that spectrum because you would look at them and say, oh, they're reduced affect display, or now I might say binary affect display, where it's like all or nothing.
Actually, yeah, I find that in myself too. I'm either I'm on or off. I'm lit up or I'm off. I'm lit up or I'm off. So
yeah, or blinking your Haley smile and it's gone. Blinking, you miss it. Yeah. Whereas I think ESFJ, if they're not smiling, watch out. Because it's like their default is to smile, like be happy, like. Then if they're not, it's like whoa, something's up. Right. So, that's pretty much all the NE stuff.
Well, that's great because we're right on time.
No. It's the.
Well, do you guys have any follow-up comments, or I'll give another few minutes if you have any more comments.
I'll just. Which function would you two like? Well, I mean, I suggest it be one of the irrational functions. Would you like to do SE next?
I'm gonna leave it up to you guys.
Right.
Certain functions, I'm just gonna like NE. I just sat back and didn't contribute much because I feel like I don't really know much about it. It was a learning experience for me. So, I mean, a lot of the functions I feel like I don't know as much about. So, I mean, really, I'm just going to leave it up to you guys to decide what you want to do next.
I think SE, because like you both value it, and because it's related to NE, like there's some similarities, like when we went through the ADHD there, and then then when we've done the SE, then I can do the contrast with SI. It's easier for me to do the contrast.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about that live, I'm assuming the audience is going to expect SE live, so hopefully we don't end up doing something else and confusing everybody. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you, Mr. Ben and Mr. Jonathan.
Folks, it'll probably be in a month as well.
Yeah, pardon me. I have some things coming up, and I'm going to be very busy, but I will try to do a video a month. I think that's going to be a good pace. But we already have quite a bit of content I feel like people can catch up on and watch, so... Yeah.
5 videos now.
Yeah. Pretty lengthy videos at that with a lot of information. Well, we've done our best to really hash this out and make it detailed. So, okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Ben, Mr. Jonathan. And I guess until next time.